At my retirement party, I refused to sign over my shares to my nephew. Furious, he announced to everyone that I was senile and unfit to lead. My sister clapped, saying, "Time to hand over the fortune." I laughed and replied, "The will has already been updated. You're getting nothing." I never thought my retirement party would turn into a battlefield over my life's work. After dedicating over 4 decades to building my company from scratch in Chicago, I was ready to step back and enjoy the fruits of my labor. The plan was to celebrate this milestone with colleagues, friends, and family, reminiscing about the journey and looking forward to the future. Little did I know, my family had other plans. The evening was set in a grand banquet hall downtown, with floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the Chicago skyline. The room buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses as guests shared stories and toasted to my achievements. Amidst the festivities, my nephew, Alex, approached me with a folder in hand. "Uncle," he began, his tone overly casual, "I've prepared the paperwork to transfer your shares. It'll ensure a seamless transition. If you could just sign here." He handed me the documents, and I skimmed through them. It was a legal transfer of my controlling interest in the company to him. I looked up, meeting his eager eyes. "Alex," I said, keeping my voice steady, "this isn't something to be rushed. Leadership transitions require careful planning and consideration. I'm not ready to sign over my shares tonight." The surrounding conversations hushed as nearby guests tuned into our exchange. Alex's face turned red with frustration. "You're being unreasonable," he snapped. "It's obvious to everyone here that you're past your prime. The company needs fresh leadership." A murmur spread through the crowd. My sister, Margaret, Alex's mother, stepped forward, clapping her hands as if concluding a performance. "Well," she said with a tight smile, "it's about time to hand over the fortune. Let's not make this difficult." I felt a surge of emotions, betrayal, disappointment, but also a steely resolve. I couldn't help but let out a short, mirthless laugh that echoed in the silent room. "The will has already been updated," I announced, my voice carrying through the hall. "You're getting nothing." Gasps rippled through the attendees. Margaret's smile vanished, and Alex's expression twisted into a scowl. "You can't be serious," Margaret hissed. "After all we've done for you?" I raised an eyebrow. "All you've done for me? Like what?" Trying to coerce me into handing over my life's work at my own retirement party. Alex stepped closer, his fists clenched at his sides. "This company needs new blood. You're too old-fashioned to keep up with the times." I met his glare with a calm demeanor. "Experience has its merits, Alex. And trust is earned, not demanded." Margaret's face turned red. "We've been counting on this inheritance. It's our right." I shook my head. "An inheritance is not a right. It's a privilege. One that's granted based on merit and respect." The tension in the room was thick. Guests shifted uncomfortably, some whispering among themselves. I took a deep breath, addressing the room. "I've worked tirelessly to build this company, to create a legacy. It's disheartening to see that some view it merely as a payday." Margaret's husband, Robert, who had been silent until now, placed a hand on her shoulder. "Let's discuss this privately," he urged, trying to de-escalate the situation. Margaret shrugged off his hand. "No, everyone should hear this. Our family deserves that money. We've planned our lives around it." I felt a pang of sorrow. Perhaps that's the problem. Instead of building something of your own, you've been waiting to take what isn't yours. Alex's eyes narrowed. "So, who gets the company then? Some outsider?" I nodded. "I've been mentoring someone within the company who has shown dedication, innovation, and, most importantly, integrity. They will take over leadership when I'm ready to step down." Margaret's voice rose, shrill with desperation. "You're choosing a stranger over your own family?" "A stranger didn't try to manipulate me in front of my colleagues and friends," I replied. "A stranger didn't assume entitlement to something they didn't earn." Alex's face contorted with rage. "You're making a mistake. You'll regret this." I held his gaze. "The only regret I have is that it came to this." The room was silent, the celebration thoroughly soured. I turned to the guests, offering a weary smile. "I apologize for the disruption. Let's continue the evening and focus on the positive memories we've shared." Slowly, conversations resumed, though the atmosphere remained tense. Margaret and Alex stood fuming for a moment before storming out, leaving a trail of whispers in their wake. In the days that followed, the fallout was significant. Margaret and Alex attempted to challenge the will, but my legal preparations were solid. They tried to rally other family members to their cause, painting me as the villain who betrayed his own blood. However, many saw through their greed and chose not to take sides. I focused on mentoring the chosen successor, ensuring the company's values would endure. The betrayal by my sister and nephew was a heavy burden, but it reaffirmed my belief that legacy is about more than bloodlines. It's about principles, hard work, and the choices we make. In the end, the company thrived under new leadership, and I found peace in knowing that my life's work was in capable hands. As for Margaret and Alex, they faced the consequences of their actions, learning that entitlement and greed lead only to loss. A week after the party, things got uglier. I thought Margaret and Alex would lick their wounds and move on, but I underestimated how far they'd go. It started small. A few employees, ones I'd trusted for years, began acting strange. Meetings were missed. Memos were ignored. Projects stalled. I confronted one of the senior managers, Don, someone I'd promoted myself years ago. He avoided my eyes. "I think you should ask Alex," he mumbled. "Ask him what?" I said. He shrugged. "He's been saying things. About you. About the company." I didn't press him. The next day, I found out Alex had been holding meetings with staff behind my back. In the break room, during lunches, even on calls at night. He was spreading rumors that I was mentally declining, that I was paranoid, unstable, maybe even sick. He told them I was going to take the company down with me if someone didn't step in. Some people believed him. I tried to keep calm. I documented everything. Dates, names, what was said. But every day, I felt the ground under my feet shifting. There were whispers. Awkward silences when I walked into rooms. A few department heads stopped showing up to our check-ins altogether. Then I received a letter from the board of directors. Alex had submitted a petition, backed by Margaret, requesting a competency hearing. He wanted a panel to evaluate whether I was mentally fit to continue managing my shares or influencing company decisions. That hit hard. These were people who used to trust me. Now they wanted a formal assessment of my mind, all based on lies. But I didn't panic. I'd been preparing. A year before this, I had a feeling something like this might happen. Margaret had made some offhand comments during a holiday dinner that made my skin crawl, jokes about waiting their turn and counting the days. So I'd quietly started seeing a therapist and a neurologist too. Regular evaluations. Clean reports. All documented. I contacted my lawyer, Richard, the same man who helped me build my first office lease. He was sharp and didn't like bullies. "We're not just going to fight this," he said. "We're going to expose them." The hearing was scheduled 2 weeks later. Until then, Alex strutted through the office like he already owned the place. He even started moving his things into my corner office without permission. I didn't stop him. Let him dig his hole. The day of the hearing, I walked in with Richard and 2 thick folders in hand. One held medical records, every clean test and professional note proving I was mentally fit. The other held something better, emails, texts, and printed chat logs. Some from Alex, some from Margaret. Messages bragging about their plan. How they'd take control by force if needed. One even joked about making me accidentally fall down the stairs. I watched the faces of the board as they read. Alex tried to laugh it off. "Old people don't understand jokes," he said, voice shaking. Margaret stepped in. "This is ridiculous." He probably made those messages up. Or took them out of context. Richard dropped the final blow. These were pulled from a backup of Alex's phone. Subpoenaed with court approval. Silence. Still, the board didn't say anything right away. The hearing wasn't a courtroom. They weren't going to declare a winner then and there. But the damage was done. Later that week, Alex was asked to take a leave of absence. Margaret started calling people, trying to do damage control. She left me 2 voicemails, both laced with guilt-tripping, talking about family loyalty and How could I be so cruel? I didn't respond. But that wasn't the end. A week later, my car was keyed in the office parking lot. Big, angry gouges across the driver's side. No cameras caught it, but I didn't need proof to know who did it. Then, my successor, Maria, a sharp and honest manager I'd been training, got a strange call from someone claiming to be from HR. They told her she was under investigation and should take some time off. But HR knew nothing about it. Someone was trying to get her out of the way. That's when I knew Alex wasn't done. Even after being suspended, he was still pulling strings. Still trying to ruin me. So I did something I'd been holding back on. I called in an old favor. One of my college friends, Henry, had gone into corporate investigations. Not the kind you hire for stolen staplers. The kind you hire when someone's laundering money or committing internal fraud. I asked him to look into Alex's financials. Not because I was hunting for dirt, but because I had a feeling. 2 weeks later, Henry called me. "You were right," he said. "You might want to sit down." Alex had been embezzling small amounts of money for years. Nothing massive at once, but consistent. Thousands here and there, rerouted through fake consulting invoices, fake reimbursements. And guess who had been signing off on them when I wasn't looking? Margaret. They were in it together. Henry had a full report, dates, transfers, forged signatures. I stared at the pages, numb. All this time, while pretending they were waiting their turn, they'd already been stealing. I didn't take it to the police. Not yet. Because I realized something. If they were this desperate to take everything from me, then they must have already spent what they had. Which meant they were vulnerable. And scared. I didn't want to destroy them. Not yet. But I was going to make sure they knew I could. And that's when I started planning something they'd never expect. After Henry sent me the full report, I spent a couple of days in silence. Not because I didn't know what to do, but because I wanted them to think they'd gotten away with it. Let them believe I was just another, outdated relic, too slow to catch what was happening right under my nose. The truth was, I was steps ahead, and I was just getting started. I sent anonymous copies of the embezzlement report to 2 places, the internal audit department of the company and a mid-level IRS field agent I'd worked with years ago during a tax seminar. I didn't sign anything. No fingerprints. No return address. Just the documents and a short typed note. Look into these transactions. You'll find the rest. Then I waited. Alex tried to come back after his leave of absence, acting like everything was normal. The board hadn't publicly declared anything, and since he still held a non-voting role in the family trust, he strutted around like nothing had happened. He even threw a thinly veiled jab at Maria during a morning meeting, something like, "Some people get handed things they didn't earn." She stayed calm. I made a note. Meanwhile, Margaret kept showing up to board luncheons like she was still in charge of the family estate. She wore her usual pearls and that smug smile she'd had since she was 15. She made a big show of greeting people, touching shoulders, faking concern, playing the matriarch. But no one asked her opinion anymore. They just nodded politely. Then came the first twist I didn't see coming. I got a call from the nursing home where my father had spent the last few years of his life before passing last spring. The administrator sounded hesitant. "Mr. Avery, I'm sorry to disturb you. We had an unusual audit triggered by an anonymous tip. There were some irregularities in your father's account." My blood ran cold. "What kind of irregularities?" I asked. She hesitated again. "Well, some of the checks paid from his personal account to the home, they bounced." "Bounced?" I repeated. "That account was fully funded." It was, she confirmed. Until about 3 months before his passing. She emailed me the transaction logs. My father's care account had been drained systematically over the course of a year. Every few weeks, a transfer just under the reporting threshold, sent to a Shell LLC in Indiana. The signature on the withdrawal slips? Margaret's. I sat there staring at the screen. I couldn't believe what I was reading. She hadn't just tried to steal the company. She'd stolen from our father when he couldn't even speak for himself anymore. I called Richard immediately. "We can't go public with this yet," he said. "But we will. Let me do a little digging first." You just stay quiet and keep collecting. That was the plan, until Margaret made her next move. One morning, I arrived at the office and found security guards standing at the entrance to my own floor. They told me my keycard had been deactivated. No explanation. No warning. I called the building manager. Same story. A temporary hold had been requested by the trust's internal administrator. Guess who that was? Margaret. She'd used a clause in our original corporate trust, one I'd stupidly allowed her to co-sign years ago, that let a trustee pause a senior member's access for 72 hours in case of suspected misconduct. No proof required. Just a form and a signature. Inside the office, she and Alex were walking around like they owned the place. They even moved my nameplate off the door. That afternoon, I went home and pulled out an old lockbox from my personal safe. Inside were two things: the handwritten letter from my father, written before his stroke, naming me sole executor of the family trust, not Margaret, and a USB drive with backup files from our earliest company records, showing how I had funded over 70% of the startup capital with my own money, not family funds like Margaret always claimed. I called Richard again. He told me to come to his office that night. We stayed up until almost midnight building a legal case. Not just against Alex and Margaret for fraud and manipulation, but to fully sever them from any remaining influence over the company. Richard wanted to bring everything to court. But I had another idea. Not yet, I said. Let them hang themselves a little more. Over the next week, I stayed quiet. No calls. No emails. Nothing. That silence made them bold. Margaret called a private shareholder update meeting without me. She spun a story about how I was too sick to attend, how I'd quietly stepped aside for the good of the company. Alex gave a fake presentation about future vision, pitching risky real estate expansions the board had already rejected last year. I had a friend record the whole thing. Then came the IRS letter. Not to me, to Alex. A formal notice of inquiry. He looked rattled. His usual smug smirk started fading. 2 days later, a second letter landed at the company's accounting department. Margaret was next. The nursing home launched an internal complaint. Lawyers got involved. Quiet ones at first. Then subpoenas. I heard she tried to blame the bookkeeper. Problem was, she signed every transfer. And still, I said nothing. Until Alex came crawling back. He showed up at my house, unannounced, looking tired and smaller somehow. "Uncle," he said, not meeting my eyes, "I think we got off on the wrong foot." I want to fix things." I opened the door, let him in, sat down across from him, said nothing. "We're family," he said. "We should talk. We can still figure something out." I watched him fidget, waiting for me to crack, waiting for the old man to offer mercy. But I wasn't here for mercy. I was here for the truth. And Alex didn't know that behind him, on the kitchen counter, my phone was recording every word. Alex sat there on my couch, hands clasped like a schoolboy waiting for discipline. His voice cracked as he tried to make small talk, throwing in words like family and second chances like band-aids over bullet wounds. He clearly didn't know I had every word being recorded. I let him talk for a few minutes, nodding occasionally. Then I got up, walked into the kitchen, and grabbed the USB drive with the embezzlement files. I placed it gently on the table in front of him. His eyes darted to it. He didn't touch it. "What's this?" he asked, playing dumb. "You already know," I said. "Go ahead. Open it." "I don't. It's everything. The fake invoices. The money siphoned from Dad's accounts. The shell companies. Your little paper trail, Alex. You really thought no one would notice." His face turned pale. "You're bluffing." I laughed. Not cruelly, not loud, just enough to let him know I wasn't playing. "Margaret too?" I asked. "You convinced her this was the way? Or was it the other way around?" He started, then stopped. He looked down. "She said you owed us." That sentence hit harder than I expected. Owed them? I sat down across from him. "Owed you what exactly?" "The years I gave up building this company while you two were off in Europe? The money I gave your mother when Robert lost everything in that land deal?" The time I helped you get into business school even though your grades barely made the cut. He didn't answer. His eyes were watering now. She said you were going to leave it all to strangers. That we'd be left with nothing, he mumbled. She said it was only fair to take back what was ours before it was too late. Before I could reply, the front door opened. Maria stepped in, carrying files. She paused when she saw Alex. "Oh," she said. "Didn't realize we had company." "Stay," I said. Alex wiped his face. "Look, I didn't mean for it to get this far." Maria looked from me to him, then quietly walked to the kitchen island and set her files down. She didn't speak, but her presence made Alex uncomfortable. "You started rumors about me," I said. "You locked me out of my own office. You made calls pretending to be HR, trying to get Maria suspended. You lied. Over and over. Don't pretend this was some misunderstanding." Alex looked at her now, eyes wet. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I was scared." Maria raised an eyebrow. "Scared of what?" "Not getting free money." That stung. He looked down, defeated. Then the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the door. It was Margaret. She looked immaculate as always. Hair sprayed stiff, pearl earrings, coat folded perfectly over her arm. "I came to talk," she said without waiting for an invite. She stepped in, saw Alex, and her smile faltered. "You called him?" "He showed up on his own," I said, closing the door. She looked at the USB drive on the table, then back at me. "You've been busy." "You stole from Dad," I said flatly. "While he was in a bed, not even able to feed himself. You forged his signature. You used his name to funnel cash into fake companies." She didn't deny it. "He didn't need all that money anymore," she said. "He was barely there." I stepped back, stunned. Maria gasped. Alex dropped his head into his hands. "You're a monster," Maria whispered. "I did what I had to," Margaret said, her voice shaking now. "You don't know what it's like to raise a family, to be expected to always be second. Always watching someone else get the praise while you sit on the sidelines." "You were never on the sidelines," I said. "You put yourself there. I offered you positions, chances. You turned them down every time. Then blamed me for building something when you wouldn't lift a finger. Because you wanted me to play by your rules," she snapped. "Your company, your name, your legacy. What about mine?" She was trembling now. Her anger was real, but so was her guilt. I saw it. Alex looked up. "Mom, stop." She turned to him. "No. He needs to hear it. We deserved a piece of this. You and me both. And if he wasn't going to give it, then we had to take it." "No," Alex said softly. We didn't have to do any of it. I just wanted you to be proud of me. I thought if I could prove I could run the company, you'd finally..." He broke off. Silence. The tension in the room was thick. Margaret stood frozen, like someone just realizing they're standing on broken glass. Alex looked like a man who'd aged 10 years in 5 minutes. Maria finally spoke. "I've seen greedy people. I've seen selfish ones. But I've never seen people destroy their own family this way and still think they're the victims." Margaret turned to her, eyes cold. "You don't get to judge me." "No," Maria replied, voice steady. "But I do get to protect what he built. And I won't let either of you touch it again." Margaret looked at me, perhaps expecting me to intervene. I didn't. She walked out. Alex didn't follow. He stayed seated, staring at the floor. "I'll resign," he said after a long silence. "From everything." "I'll make it official," I replied. "Tomorrow." He nodded. "I know." He left quietly. For a moment, the house was still. Maria stood by the kitchen counter, eyes distant. "That was heavy," she finally said. I nodded, but my chest felt lighter than it had in weeks. "Thank you," I said, "for standing by me." She smiled faintly. "Let's just make sure they don't come back." And they didn't. In the months that followed, things slowly stabilized. Margaret's name was quietly removed from the trust. The embezzlement charges stuck, but I didn't push for jail. I let the financial penalties and social humiliation do the work. She vanished from the company's orbit. Alex took a job out of state. Last I heard, he was managing a mid-level logistics team in St. Louis. Sometimes I wonder if he ever really wanted the company or just her approval. I've learned a lot since that party. About people. About family. About how betrayal doesn't always come with knives. It comes with smiles and handshakes and words like trust. Do I regret cutting them out? No. Do I miss them? Sometimes. But I don't miss who they became. And I don't miss the weight I carried, pretending not to see it all. The truth is, I'm not angry anymore. Just done. And for once, that feels like enough.